this tutorial, we're going to use Photoshop CC 2020 to complete Classroom in a Book Chapter 6, which is all about how to use masks and channels. When you use masks, you kind of think about it as how you would apply masking tape to a pane or a wall before you paint it. Those masked areas are being protected before they're being changed. So we're going to go ahead and create this magazine image today. Let's go ahead and go to our start file. So 06 start. As usual, let's go to our image size, take a peek at what we have. So today we've got 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches with a resolution of 200. So this definitely is not big enough to cover an entire cover of a magazine. If this was something you were doing for your publication, think about what size you're actually going to use it as you're moving forward, because it's going to make a big difference in how you prepare and put together those elements. Also, the resolution's 200, fine for this purpose, not fine for an actual publication. All right, let's say OK. File, save as, first initial, last name, underscore Photoshop, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 6, as a PSD, and save. I don't know how to make that quieter. Say OK. I wonder if I can make that quieter. Let's try this. Nope, still pretty loud. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out what is next. Let's go ahead and go to our layers panel. We want to make sure we're on our model layer. The first thing we want to do is select and mask. So we want to tell it what we want to keep. So we want to keep her. We do not want to keep all the rest of the stuff around her because we're going to put her in a different background. So let's go to select. Let's come down here to select and mask. With select and mask, there is a new thing that hasn't always been in the previous versions of Photoshop. So we actually have a select subject now. So you see when we do select and mask, we got this what's called onion skin, kind of a semi-transparent checkerboard to kind of tell what you are and aren't choosing. So let's go ahead to our options bar and do select subject. And it's going to go through and figure out where it thinks our subject is. So let's go ahead and look at our different view modes so we can see a little bit better what it thinks we want to keep. So we've got this overlay. And overlay, you can tell that we missed part of her shirt a little bit. So let's go ahead and click out of that. And let's go ahead and zoom in. You can do a Control plus. Use your space bar in your hand. Let's go grab this area again. So we want to grab that quick selection tool. Make sure you do about a size between 11 and 15. And we're going to color in the area that we want to expose. It's okay if you get too much. We can always go back through and take it back out. So I've got a plus here. Let's go ahead and use my minus. Kind of take out part of this until I am happy with it. So maybe a little bit closer. So the better and cleaner your selection is now, the better and cleaner your mask is going to be that you get to work with in terms of your photo that you're going to be putting on something else. So it looks pretty good. I'm relatively happy with it. So let's go ahead and take another look at our view menu, and let's look at on layers. So if we look at on layers, it kind of gives us an idea of what it's going to look like on the actual background. So don't push OK just yet. We're going to refine this mask a little bit, because if you can see right here, we kind of lose a little bit of her hair. All of a sudden it looks kind of like it's invisible. Have a little bit of background showing through here, which we don't necessarily want. So let's do a Control plus. Oh, click over here. Control plus and zoom in on those sections. Take my hand, move in. All right, and we're going to use what's called the refine mask. So let's go ahead and grab the hair edges and use our refine tool. So it kind of looks like a monster hand to me. So with that refine, we're going to tell it what we want to bring back in. So we want a size of about 20, hardness of 100%. So you can kind of chill down here, click up in your bar. And what we're going to do is tell it to bring these areas back in. So you kind of go over the edges and make those areas come back in. So now it doesn't look quite so much like it is just floating down. And if you scroll in a little bit more. until you get to a point where you're pretty happy with it. All right, let me scroll down. And I can see I've got a little bit of some background that came through from before. So I want to make sure I go over top of that to make it more transparent. Got a little bit in here. So we're going to make sure we've got all that. I'm not too worried about all these little flyaway hairs. If I wanted to grab them all, I could with this Refine. But it's not really something I'm not too worried about. So make sure you go through here. Make sure you've got the hair from the loop in. Alright, so let's go ahead and view it on black and white and see what it looks like. Let's do a Control minus and zoom out. Click over to the side. So whatever I'm seeing here in my black and white is what I'm actually going to keep. So I could take that Refine, maybe I want to rub it over this just a little bit more. It's a little more, a little better. Come down here, do her hair a little bit so I can see all those individual hairs starting to pop up. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. So at this point, let's go ahead and decide how we're going to look at this when we output it. So let's go ahead and put it back on layers. And we want to have some global refinements. So I'm going to click over here. You may or may not have this expanded, so go ahead and expand it. We want to take that smooth slider to about 5, not 50. I want to take the contrast down here to 20. And I want to shift the edge to -15. So it's going to kind of take out some of the fringing and things that we have going on here. So we look at it, we're pretty happy with it. We want to make sure that if there's any other corrections, we want to go through and fix that. So let's go ahead and complete the mask. So in our output settings, we want to go ahead and tell it to, let's zoom in just a little bit so we can see what's going on. So you can kind of see you've got a little bit of a halo going on around her face and such. We don't necessarily want that. So let's go use our decontaminate colors in order to get rid of part of that. And let's set that amount to about 25% or so. So it kind of makes it so it's a little bit fringes but not too much. And we want to make sure we output to a new layer with a mask and say OK. So that way you can actually see the difference between your masked model and your unmasked model. So if you want to, you can always go back in and fix part of this. So I would probably want to go back in and fix that little bit of her lips if I'm really, really picky. Alright, so let's go ahead and figure out how to make a quick mask. So for a quick mask, it's a mask that you only need to use once. We're not going to have to go back in and tune it a whole bunch of times. So let's go ahead and go to our quick mask tool. So I'm first going to zoom in so we can see her glasses. Alright, I'm going to go to my quick mask tool, which is at the bottom of the tools panel. So it's going to change it so it looks a little bit like a camera. So we're on that model copy. We're going to grab that brush tool. And we want to brush, it's a little bit bigger. We want it to be about the size of the glasses. Let's go ahead and make sure our hardness is about 100%. So we've got a hardness, 20%, we're good there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is we want to create the mask, saying anything under this red is what I want to change the color of. So I want to change the color of her glasses from being brown to being kind of a funky green that I'm going to use. Now I'm not super happy with that. I've got a little bit of outside the line there. So if I change this from black to white and then go back over it, white will erase it. So you paint with black to make the mask and you erase with white. I know it sounds really goofy, but it is the way it is. So let's go ahead and make sure we mask the whole part of her glasses here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and mask a little bit more. You can change the size of your brush with those square brackets. So anything that is in the mask is what we're going to change. So make sure you're doing a really good job with your selections. It'll make it much easier to get a much cleaner look later. So I'm going to go up and down here, come around, bring it back up again. Too big. So mine's not perfect yet. So I've got a little bit out of the mask, so I'm going to change it to white. Erase that a little bit. And zoom out and see how it looks. If you want to, you can be super picky and go in and grab those pixels right there on the edges. So I'm going to grab that black. I grabbed too much, so switch. It's totally up to you how much of a perfectionist you're going to be when it comes to doing this progress. So let's go ahead, and I think we look okay. So let's go ahead, now that we've got this, we've continued painting. We're going to go back to our standard mode. So go back here to the one that looked like a camera, and it'll choose our selection for us. We want to go up to select and come down to inverse. All right, with select inverse, it's going to adjust it for us. Now let's go to image, adjustments. We want to do hue and saturation. And we're going to go ahead and play with that. Let's bump that hue up to about 70. So you can see you've got a wide range of colors available. And you can see, based on the fact that I didn't get those little edges, that they remained brown. So that's why you want to be pretty sure that you're doing a nice job in what you're selecting. All right, so I'm going to say OK. I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to Control D to deselect. So because it's a quick mask, I can't go in and fix it the way I could the other one. So now what we're going to do is play with something called a puppet warp. So a puppet warp will allow you to change and manipulate the flexibility of an image. So we want to be able to see the whole thing. Let's go to View, Fit on Screen, so we can fit the whole thing. And with the model copy selected, we want to go to Layers. We want to come down to Edit. Nope, wrong one. We want to go to Edit, Edit, and then come down to Puppet Warp. It's going to lay a mesh over the entire thing. And now we need to put in pins to tell it what to stay still. So I'm going to add pins along the edges saying don't move these areas. So we're going to come up to just under her chin or so. Okay, so now I've got all of my pins in. The active pin is the one that is going to have that blue center. So the one I would use most recently is this blue center. So let's go ahead and go to this one on the back of her neck and change that blue. And now we can hit Alt or Option. And we're going to get a curved arrow, and that's going to allow us to tilt her head up and down. So it's kind of creepy, I know. Let's go ahead and take her up to, where do we want? Alt. We can go back to 170. Go back a whole bunch. So I can see that number right here. So I can type in 170 if I can't get it perfect. So I've tipped her head back a whole bunch. So now let's go to do a Control S and save what we've got so far. Yes, we want to apply the puppet warp. So Control S and save. Now we're going to create a shadow for Our Lady. So we're going to use it with what's called an alpha channel. An alpha channel keeps what's grayscale information. So let's go to our Layers panel, and we want to go to our new layer. We want to go to our model copy, and we want to hit click and command, click Control, and it's going to select our model, and we should get a selection, and then we should do select, and where'd it go? Save selection. Didn't make it. Okay, let's try again. Let's do Control and click. All right, there we go. So Control and click, I got my dancing ants. Now I want to go to select, come down here to save selection. We're going to call it model outline. and say OK. And at this point, nothing changes that we can actually see. So we have to actually create the shadow. So we're going to go here to our new layer. We want to make sure it goes below our model copy because we want our shadow to be behind. Let's double click and name it shadow. Push enter. Alright, so now we still have it. Let's do select. Let's do select and mask. From there, let's look at it on black. Alright, then we want to run that shift edge slider right here over to 36. Hit tab. So it's got 36. In the output sections, we want to make sure the selection is to output to menu. So we want to put selection is on there. And let's say OK. So now I have a shadow, but I can't see it yet. So let's go edit, come down here to fill. In fill, I want to go ahead and tell it to be black, not white. I'm going to say OK. Alright, so now I have a shadow. So if I turn off my model copy, I can now see that silhouette of her behind there. So it takes quite a few steps, but it is create a pretty neat effect. Shadows we know are not completely black. Let's go ahead and pull that opacity down to about 30%. Then we're going to say deselect, so Control D. Now I need to move that shadow around a little bit. So let's go edit. Let's come down here to transform. We want to rotate it. Alright, so we can rotate based on the grab bars. So let's go to like a -15. So it tips a little bit forward. And I'm going to go ahead and in the X bar, let's try 545. That works pretty well. So I've got her completely tucked in behind. I've got her shadow the way it should be. I am happy with it. Let's push OK. Let's go ahead and click on, we've got everything we want to see. Let's do a Control S and save. So if you're going to use this as your copy for your magazine, you'd go ahead and do a duplicate and save a copy. For this purposes, all you have to do is turn this one in. So have fun with those puppet warps.